Okay, so I pretty much am just making a video about a thought that I've had. I have a few that I want to post, but I essentially just want to, you know, post them and get them up to get people thinking about it to see, and I also want to hear feedback to see, to see if I'm onto something or if it's possibly useful in some way. But so the in this video, I'm pretty much going to just go over my theory that disproves the many worlds theory or the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. And there's essentially the reasoning behind the theory, behind the many worlds theory, is that in the math of quantum mechanics, it shows that particles exist in a superposition state where they're not in one area, but they're in many. They're in all possible areas within its field at the same time. And the interpretation essentially applies that concept to the macroscopic universe. That like we behave in the same manner, like that events correlate to position, or on from micro to macro. But so I mean, and there's a lot of points I can make against that in particular, but the main idea behind what I'm trying to express is essentially in the many worlds theory. It says if you come to a stoplight or a stop sign, you will go both left and right in different universes. The universe will split, and all possibilities will happen. It's just a matter of what path you go down and what universe you go in. And what that's saying is it's not an arbitrary, or it's not saying that, like, in the law, or in the laws of physics, at a stop sign, this and this may happen. It's what they're trying to say is every possibility happens. Like in an instant, you make every decision that's possible. It's just a matter of whichever one you end up going down. Like you've probably heard people have probably heard, in one universe you'll be a doctor, and one you'll be this, and one you'll be this. But you know, it, it's somewhat arbitrary to assume that the all those possibilities tend to be likely events, because like let's say you come to that stop sign again. It's not that like what the law is saying dictates a decision between left and right. It's saying that you make any possibility. So you can come to that stop sign and pull a knife and start stabbing yourself, or you can just roll down the window and throw your phone, or say, start screaming swear words, and and then yeah, like okay, like you just stab yourself. Okay, you just all of a sudden randomly stab yourself. That happens in one of those universes according to the many worlds theory. And then there's another universe where you pull out a knife, start stabbing yourself, but your pinky is oriented here instead of here, because that's a decision. Like you decide, where your body parts are. So like as you're going to do this, your muscles are just slightly like this, and the other one you decide to stab yourself like this, or like at this angle, or like this, and then all those possibilities happening, but with your pinky here, like I was saying, and then all those possibilities between the pinky variations, except your arm is here, and then all those variations, your arm is here, and then all those possibilities with the arm and pinky, except your arm is here, like, so it goes on just infinitely between all the possibilities. Now, so the essentially the amount of possible things that can happen if we split time into instances. So every instant you can make any decision. Now, the odds that there would be any continuity or perceived continuity to events, to an event, it would be impossible if this theory is true. Because, like, let's just imagine somebody, like starting a race, so every second they're confronted with the possibility that they can just run into the wall, they can get out and start screaming, and technically, according to the theory, that this happens in every universe. So what are the odds that we always happen to go down a universe that is mostly coherent and consistent and is in accordance with the probability and odds of things happening. So, and then, some people might think, well, there are crazy things that happen. What about those? But those crazy things that are against the odds still happen with accordance to the unlikeliness or the likelihood of them happening. So, like, like if what are the odds that you won the million, the lotto? But if enough people play, like it's just bound to happen. Or let's say every moment, like let's say a 1 out of 1 million happens, and it's like, well, there's a time we went down a crazy universe, but again, it's still in accordance with the odds that it happens, because let's say every second a 1 out of 1 million can happen, okay? And every, like, let's just divide your visual field into like 8 parts, and in each 8 parts, a 1 out of 1 million can happen every second, okay? So that means within a day, and even though we would divide it up more than a second, shorter than a second, because you can be making a second or a decision, hundreds of times within a second, and there's other things that are faster than that or whatever. But even if we divide it on that scale and your visual field into 8 parts, when obviously there's way more than that, that still would mean that something crazy would happen within a day, within a day or two, and every second, think about this, like something crazy could have been happening. Like you can be pulling out on a road and that person can have the exact same license plate as you, or the next 10 people in the cars in front of you all have the same first name, or you run into somebody you haven't seen for a long time. Like all these things could be happening at every second, but don't. So when eventually you hit that 1 out of 1 million, it's just happening with the likelihood of it happening. And again, that's where we're always at in our universe. Even though unlikely things happen, they happen to a degree that they should happen. So, but this wouldn't be the case with the many worlds interpretation, because with all universes happening, with all split possibilities becoming reality, that means that it would be just as likely that we would go down a universe in which the odds were 100% reversed, like by chance, because every universe happens. That means that dice would not work as a 1 out of 6 chance that they're going to land on the number you choose. Like, there would be a universe where every time a person called a number on a dice, it would always hit that number. Like that, it would just be a known thing, that like that's what dices do. And there's a universe where it does that 90% of the time, and there's a universe where coins do that, but dices don't, and there's a universe where both do that. And so and that's what I mean, But then that's just a small example, but just back up and apply that to everything, like the odds that things are somewhat coherent and that there's continuation, like the fact that I'm finishing my sentence or finishing my thought or making a video on the same topic would not happen if this theory was true, because if all possibilities happened, I would be explaining this and then I'd kill myself and then I'd be doing this or I'd do that, all these crazy things. There wouldn't be such thing as a finished thought or a finished action, because every second along that way, there's a way greater possibility that it hit one of the other billions or trillions or infinite amount of possibilities that there are. So what are the odds that it just so happened to move on to the next moment that makes somewhat sense? So, and it'd be like this, I'm about to hold up, this is like an example. I'm about to hold up 3 fingers. Okay? I'm about to hold up 2 fingers. I'm about to hold up 4 fingers. Okay, now, so even though I said that I'm in control of that, technically, according to the theory, there is a universe where I said I was going to hold up 3, but then held up 5, okay? Like technically, because every possibility happens according to the theory. Now this doesn't mean like, somebody can replicate this and then do it off or whatever. But the fact, well, they could, but that's not my point. What I'm saying is the fact that, I am making a point and it happened to be true would be extremely unlikely. That you just so happen to be in the universe where my words matched up with the fingers, because if all possibilities happened, that means that it was just as likely, it was actually extremely unlikely that you were in the one where I actually did that, because I could have said 2 and then held up 5, and any of the other fingers I could have held up. That right there kind of proves it, And yeah, again, like where I was going with what I was saying earlier is somebody else can do that and throw it off, and that's, they can decide to do that and that would happen. But the point is the fact that it happened right here. Just the odds of me doing that this once shows that it's likely that the universe didn't split into every possibility as I was doing that. It'd just be, too unlikely. And so, another counter to this, to my idea, is that people can say, yeah, there's, many possibilities of the universe happening, many, crazy things that could be in accordance, but we could just be down one of those universes where it's like things are just slightly different than how they could have been another one. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of an obvious point, but the thing is like the complex things, complex events or outcomes are inherently more numerous in possibility than simple ones. Like that is, it's almost within the definition. It's almost, I mean, it is, there's laws of physics that almost kind of back that up conceptually, like entropy and thermodynamics, but like as far as complexity, complex things happening. But that's the thing. Things still hold true too closely to the way that they should, and things happen, too often in accordance to the possibility of them happening. And none of these things would be the case if the universe split into all possibilities. So, and there are some odds, or there's some points that I can make against, some of the inner workings of the theory too, as far as where they're coming from is, the math I explained earlier, that it's in a superpositioning state, but so that means that we are. But that's kind of flawed reasoning because, I mean, and yeah, they have made larger objects behave quantum mechanically, but we observe it at the time, when this happens. I would just look at it the way it is, as far as the particles behave in that way. And so that maybe this means that, a particle could be in a different state that might have an electrical signal go through your brain and you do a slightly different decision. So maybe the universe, splits, it splits happen, but to say that every possibility happens just doesn't hold up. It doesn't make sense as far as what we observe, what we see, what we experience. Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, and there's more I can go into it. There's a lot more I can back this up with, but essentially, that's the idea. And I'll just wrap it up here, just because it's long enough of an explanation. But yeah, I would like to hear feedback if anyone has a response, has a rebuttal. If I see it in the comments, I'll respond. I mean, I brought this up to other people, and they'll say something, and then I'll be like, okay, well, that's a good point, but that would apply like this, and that still would make what I'm saying true. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that's right, good point. So my point is if you do think of something that you think I should hear, be open-minded about the fact that that I'm going to respond, and maybe I'll have something that will explain it in terms that you now relate with or agree with. But okay, so that's it for this video. If you liked it at all, if it made you think, go ahead and like it. All right, thanks.